Thanks for coming and sitting down and having a chat with me.
Absolutely.
If anyone doesn't know who I'm talking to right now, this is Eric Gillette, who you probably know from the Neal Morse Band out of anything else, but he does all kinds of other stuff as well. So how are the tours that you guys just did?
Oh, they're great. Well, so we did the U.S. tour, and I leave for Europe here in about a month, I guess. Nice. It's just awesome to get out and play. It felt like it's been forever. I mean, we did, in 2020, we did a Morse Fest, virtual Morse Fest in Nashville. Still awesome to play, but not quite the same to only have like 30 people, because we were very limited, obviously, on how many we could have. But yeah, playing actual shows with actual audiences was pretty awesome. So
yeah, it seems like, at least as far as the couple of shows that I've done recently, is like people are super into it. You know, it's
yeah, like, more than before.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, wow, yeah, music again. Like, I've only gotten to go to a couple shows. I missed you guys when you came through, because I'm just north of Seattle. Just north of Seattle.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I have small children, so the amount of concerts I get to go to is
same here.
Very limited, especially when I play a lot too. So it's like,
right,
I can't really justify going to too many concerts. But I've caught you guys here a couple times before, but I missed it this time. I'm sure the crowd was great though.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Where do you usually play in Seattle?
Last 2 times have been the Triple Door.
Yeah, the Triple Door is great.
Yeah, great venue.
So where are you heading in Europe?
I think all over. I've only like glanced at it, but you know, the usual hot spots.
And everything is pretty much open there now?
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything otherwise. So
I know like Canada's been weird too. Did you go to Canada this last time?
We pulled those dates because at the time the border was closed.
Okay.
When we actually would have been playing there, it would have been opened.
Yeah.
But you know, you got to plan ahead, and there's money on the line and all that. So it's at some point
you never know. It's like things get pushed back so much. I'm sure didn't your tour actually get pushed back originally?
Yeah.
From something
yep.
else?
I think we originally had it for what was it, October, I think, something like that. Okay. And we just decided to wait a little bit longer,
just to be
which probably was a good idea, but
yeah,
I don't know.
It's like you don't want to tour with limited capacity for venues, or like,
yeah, exactly.
It just kind of ruins the whole experience.
Yeah, for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So if anyone who watches my channel doesn't know, I actually auditioned for the Neal Morse Band, was it 10 years ago now?
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
That is crazy. I was just thinking about it recently. I was like, really, 10 years?
Wow.
But
yeah, that's insane.
But how was that experience for you?
It was awesome. I mean, the usual, like, actually maybe more than a usual audition, probably a little more nerve-wracking now that, you know, knowing who Neal was and being a fan and all that. So there was that aspect, but then I think the excitement of the possibility outweighed that kind of nervousness. Because for me, it was like I was kind of stuck doing country stuff, playing. I was living in Dallas, where I was born and raised, and there's not a big prog scene down there, or in a lot as it is in lots of places. But so the gigs that were around and available and that paid were like bar country music gigs, cover gigs, 45-minute set type things. And so I was kind of stuck doing that. And obviously that's, for someone that's super into this kind of music, it wasn't very fulfilling at all. So I was just sitting around one day, and it was very weird, because I was sitting on my couch and I thought, like, I remember that Neal Morse guy. I wonder what he's up to. So I just looked him up on Twitter. And then his last post was that post saying he's having open auditions for his solo band. And I mean, it was just instantaneous in my mind. I was like, I'm doing that. So then it was just a matter of, learning the stuff, which wasn't super easy. And then, just hoping for the best. And
so you auditioned on keyboard as well, right?
I did. I was driving in my car listening to the music, trying to most of my learning, mentally learning music, I do in my car or while traveling or something. Because I like to get the music in my head before I sit down and try to start learning stuff. I would try to start learning stuff as I'm listening to it, and it's I don't even know what's coming next. Why am I trying to figure it out. So I try to like internalize the music, but I was doing that and I just thought, I think it was the bit of creation. There's lots of cool key stuff in that. And I think the part of me was just like, that sounds fun to play on keys. And then I was like, oh, well, what if I, you're always trying to look for a way to like stand out or just to let them know what you can do if needed. And I'm glad I did. But I mean, yeah, because it's one thing to go to the audition and be like, oh, yeah, I play some keys too, or just like throwing it out there and letting them see it. So I just decided to do that 12-minute, I think it was like 12-minute long excerpt on keys. And yeah, it was a lot of work. It was interesting, fun experience.
I'm sure that probably was something that they saw and thought about. Now, have you actually ever played keys in the Neal Morse Band live?
Yeah, so in that first kind of iteration of his solo band where Adson was on guitar and then I was on guitar and keys, utility, doing a bunch of the high background vocals and all that. So I did play my fair share of keys on his Momentum tour that we did. So yeah, I got to actually utilize some of that, which was good and fun.
Yeah. Well, I think anything you can do to stand out in an audition experience is good. Yeah, I remember, I mean, I was super nervous too. It was the same, and pretty much the same deal. It's like I live somewhere where there's no prog really scene. I don't know if there's really a prog scene in a specific place. That's probably not something that exists. It's kind of like spread out. But someone like sent me like, hey, Neal Morse is doing an audition. I was like, oh, sweet, I remember being very nervous as well, but I feel like Neal was such a nice and warm person that once I got there, the nerves kind of went away, at least to a certain extent. You never know with a like professional audition, like you hear horror stories about like how serious it is or whatever, and it's like, but that was not my experience at all. Anyway, it felt very comfortable once I kind of got into it. So you do a lot of singing too with Neal Morse, and is that something you've always been into, like working on?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I've always been able to carry a tune, and like, I mean, actually, I think I started piano at the age of 4, and the reason I did that was because one of my parents' friends, I was walking around humming at like the age of 4, and she heard me, and she realized that I was like humming on key, or whatever I was singing was like in key with itself, whatever you want to call that. And she was like, you should probably get him in some sort of lessons. So I did piano, and then from then on I picked a bunch of instruments up, but I didn't really do a lot of singing, at least definitely not anything like by myself or performance wise. That wouldn't have, not my cup of tea back then. Still, even to this day, like if I didn't have a guitar around my neck, I'd probably be a little freaked out.
Yeah.
But, it's like my little comfort zone. But later, kind of when I started doing that country stuff, there's always, some need for some background vocals. So I would jump in and just the more I did it, the more comfortable I got, and kind of like, you got to kind of find your voice literally. I mean, like you gotta like explore and figure out what you can do, where your limitations are, where your strengths are. And just the more I did it, the more I just kind of figured out what I'm good at and what I suck at, and kind of, try to get better at those things I suck at. But
so did you?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. The more you do, the better you get with most things, but definitely with singing.
I feel like the voice is so like it's personal and it feels so much more vulnerable, at least to me, than playing guitar. It might be because I'm not like, I haven't focused just on singing like a lot of people do. Did you ever think that you'd be singing lead as much as you do in the Neal Morse Band?
No, not. If you had told me that when I was 16 in my room playing Metallica songs, I would have said nah. But it's awesome. It is a little more terrifying is not the right word, but like in a touring sense, it's far more nerve-wracking because, like, let's say you have, a bad cold or something, you can get through a gig on guitar. If you're lead singing lots of stuff, you're kind of screwed. So there's that whole other aspect of like staying healthy and keeping your voice in shape, and so that's a little more nerve-wracking. But the only thing I found that helps me with that is like an extreme amount of sleeping. which is not a bad thing, especially having 2 kids at home. Like I sleep in my coffin, as I call it, my bunk on the bus for as long as I can.
Oh yeah, when you're away from the kids, that's when you can actually sleep. That's
The only
can't
time,
sleep
yeah.
at home. That's not happening. I hear my kids banging around above me right now. Yeah, I think singing, it's the same kind of thing for me with singing. Was like I've always sung background, but never really done lead too much. And if I don't have a guitar, like I feel super uncomfortable
For sure.
having to sing. But you actually sing like a lot of the like big moments in the Neal Morse songs in the albums. How did that come about? Was it just like Neal heard you singing like, hey, try this out?
I mean, I think it's I mean, they knew I had Bill has a high register too. Which he does do some of the big moments too, and it just kind of depends
on
where it's at. And sometimes like when we write, we'll kind of rough it in, I mean, like into Pro Tools, like the demo version while we're all together. And when we come back to our own studios to do vocals and all that stuff, sometimes like me and Bill both will sing the same part and then just kind of see how it feels. And then sometimes it's pretty apparent who it feels better with. Sometimes it's just where it sits, in the register on that person. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like most of the times it's just like too high. It's too high for Neal, so he's like, someone else has to sing it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess he doesn't have like the highest voice.
No, and I wouldn't have said I did years ago, but I think it's one of those things I've kind of figured out where my voice fits and how to make it do certain things.
Yeah, you got to stretch your range, and like, you can get, at least for me, I get to a certain point. I'm like, I don't know if I could go any higher. Then there's of course some people it's just crazy how I can sing. So what's the actual sort of writing process for the Neal Morse Band? Do you all just kind of get together and write all together, or do people bring full songs in ahead of time?
We've done both. We always are in the same room writing together, which is so cool.
That's really cool, yeah.
Like the old school type. We have Jerry, our engineer, in the room, and he's ready with the click and all that, and if inspiration strikes, we'll track it live, and so it's cool. I will say on that front, having done a few records like that, like Neal he releases so much like stuff for his inner circle that I'm aware of that when we're tracking our demos even, and I'm like, this is probably going to get released, so I need to even play.
Does he does he put out the sessions from the actual like writing process and stuff to the inner circle?
He'll just like a rough mix down of it. Yeah. Not the raw. I mean, they're pretty raw.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we've done it where people bring in full kind of ideas, but even then you have to be willing and okay to have it like completely just mutilated.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff, like I think a lot of the bits from The Call from our first album were a lot of bits from a song of Bill's, and it's like if you listen to his original demo, some of it's probably not even recognizable. But and on this last record, very minimal ideas. Neal didn't bring in anything, and I think it was kind of on purpose. And it was cool because so much of it happened in the room and organically. And I think I brought a couple little like voice note ideas. I didn't want to spend too much time, especially not spending so much time when I don't want to take like 3 days demoing all this stuff that's just going to get chopped up. So really, I've learned, just bringing in a theme or a chord progression or a melody is really what is the most helpful, because then someone else tries different chords and all that, and it becomes a whole thing. Yeah,
because when you write music, especially if you live with it for a while, it becomes so personal to you. And
demo love.
Yeah. And it's like, even if it's something good, if you bring it to a band situation, it's like you have to be willing to let go of certain things. And that's hard to do, Like it took me a long time to be okay with that, because I'm like, I love this thing so much. But, and that's why it's kind of fun sometimes to write solo too, because then like you can do whatever you want. But also having other people to help edit you is a good thing.
That's true. Yeah.
Now you have some solo albums as well, right?
I do. It's hard to believe my last one was 2016, I believe. So I'm due for one, but
it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it's not work that, I do a lot of session work. I do a lot of mixing work. And so I have to kind of block off time for myself
Yeah.
in order to do that. Otherwise it's like, you got to turn down other work and all that. And it's not work that, like, it doesn't bring you any money immediately. It's usually months and months, if not longer, of work.
If ever.
Then if you ever even get it done, and then releasing it, and then seeing, if anyone's even interested. So it's a big commitment, but I'm definitely, it's something I've said I wanted to do the past couple of years, but this year I'm really gonna try to, at least after tour, to try to block off some time and get started.
Now, is it mostly instrumental? I've listened to some.
My first one is kind of half, maybe more than half instrumental. Okay. Second one is every song's a vocal song. Okay. So that was kind of something that was a direction I wanted to take it in, a little more vocal oriented. And I mean, it definitely has its instrumental moments, but I don't know what the next one would be. I wouldn't put any stipulations on it. I would just write and see what comes out.
It's just best to just go for it and do whatever feels right at the time. I mean, if you can like think about it and plan ahead, but I don't know. In my experience, whatever is kind of coming out of you naturally at the time is probably what's going to be best anyway.
Yeah.
At least it'll feel more authentic to where you are.
More organic.
Yeah. And I think at least for myself too, and it seems like you as well, that I kind of prefer to write for vocals. I don't know. There's just something about it that feels like you have more kind of emotional range to explore.
For sure. Yeah.
I end up writing instrumental because it's easier a lot of times, but
can be for sure.
Yeah. So you said you do a lot of producing and mixing. Do you actually have a studio where you're at where you can record people?
Yeah, I'm in it right now, and it's luckily it's only 10 minutes from my house, so it's nice, and it's kind of out here and on like 3 acres, and we have lodging upstairs, so like sleep 4 people comfortably.
Nice.
It's nice. I can have bands come in and stay. They don't have to worry about hotels and all that. And actually, this month was pretty busy. I had two groups come down and stay and do some mixing. And yeah, it's cool to do it remotely, but it's nice to have the option to have people come and do it in person. And it's cool that. And I'm also thinking I've done 2 master classes in the past, and so I'm thinking about doing one in August again, or 2 depending on. So I have like 4 people at a time come for a week, and master class in the sense of like everything from like we're talking about getting an initial idea, turning it into a demo, to all the way through like mixing, mastering, final product. So it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we did 2 of those. I think that was back in 2018 or something like that. So it's been a long time. Nice. But
so have you always done the production thing too, along with playing?
I have. I started with a Tascam 4-track cassette recorder that I still have actually. And I was always messing with that, and got another tape machine. I would bounce those 4 down, bring it back in, and get 3 more tracks until it just sounded awful. And I even remember I didn't have any. Those things are line inputs, I believe. There's not even mic pre's. Okay. So I ended up rigging up. I had this camera that had a stereo microphone, and I would take the camera and use the audio out of it into the Tascam for my drum stereo mic, because I didn't even have drum mics. It was awful. But yeah, I was always kind of recording, and then after high school, I went to a junior college close by that had a recording / commercial music. Commercial music's funny because I don't do anything remotely commercial really. But yeah, so that was fun to do. I had theory classes and composition classes and all that, which were super great for me, because I kind of knew that stuff, but I didn't really dive that deep in it until college, which was good for me. So yeah, I've always kind of been doing that, and yeah, just kind of learned as I went on top of going to school, which was cool.
Yeah, I really wish that I had done the same thing earlier, because when I went to music school, I kind of did like a traditional musical school thing, and I learned how to play and learned all the theory and all that. But like, I would recommend to anyone now, like if they're thinking about going to music school, but also doing some sort of music production training of
Right.
some kind, because like it doesn't matter how at this point in 2022 how well you can play if you can't like record yourself properly or video
Yeah.
yourself. Like that's such a, and I look back like on my audition tape for Neal Morse and it just looks terrible because I didn't know anything about like about
No,
anything.
mine were too. Yeah. I mean,
And it's one of those things like you think being a musician is just being a musician, right? Just playing your instrument, like learning how to play an instrument. But honestly, that's very little of what I do anymore, and probably the same's for you.
oh
Like,
gosh, I spend so much more time not playing
yeah,
music, and that's not always
it's not
I'm
a
never
bad
gonna.
thing, but
Yeah, it's I'm never gonna be complaining that I have other types of work, but yeah, it's almost like you have to wear so many hats these days. Like you're talking about learning how to video and like record, make it sound good, sync those together, social media, like, and if you're independent and don't have like a team of people doing that for you, like you have to figure out how to do it
yeah,
all, and it is a lot. And sometimes, like I'm saying, you spend so much time doing the other stuff that sometimes you can be a little like get a little bummed out. Like there's times where I just want to play and be creative, and it's like, yeah, I got to do all these other things first. Feels like I'm doing data entry or something. But it's a good problem to have. But
yeah. And like doing other things is fun. Like I don't necessarily want to sit down and play guitar for like 6 hours a day, but like there's sometimes where I wish I could just like play for a while and not
yeah,
have to like do a bunch of other stuff. And then of course having children and just life in general
yeah,
gets in the way of all that.
definitely.
That's why I recommend to people if they're younger, like practice as much as you can when you have the
While you
chance,
can,
because
yeah,
that's not always going to be the case.
get your 10,000 hours now.
Yeah, exactly. So what kind of music are you recording mostly there?
Like the stuff I'm mixing and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
or
Like
I do play on other people's records too. It just depends on
what they
it
want.
it yeah, it tends to mostly be in the progressive
Okay.
side, not always, but rock progressive,
Okay.
that umbrella. But yeah, it kind of runs the gambit, but it's cool to be able to work with people from all over. And thank God for the internet. It's one day to be like mixing a record for someone in Sweden, and then the next day someone in Colorado or whatever. It's very cool. I'm thankful for that, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I just had a band come in a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how to categorize their music because it was very difficult to. I mean, their music kind of covers a lot of ground, which is cool because I do so much progressive stuff that it's cool to kind of get out of that for a bit and then come back to it. And it's cool to for other people, I would say, that to listen to other kinds of music too and just get familiar with it, and because then you can use some of that stuff in progressive, because that's what I love about progressive rock music is that there's just no rules. That's how I describe
Yeah.
it. Just do whatever you want and incorporate stuff from all different styles, and yeah.
That's kind of why I love progressive music too, is like because it feels like anything I learned in music school or anywhere else, it's like if I go play a country gig, that if I wanted to, I could totally just like put some of that
Yeah.
into what I do, or like it gives me excuse to maybe like, oh, maybe I should learn how to, a drummer would play a reggae groove or something, just so
Mhm.
because you never know when you might actually have to use it. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And how was the whole last 2 years with COVID for you?
Man, I mean, obviously it was different and a strange time, but I mean, it was kind of weird for me because like almost immediately I got like busier. I got
Okay.
more stuff coming. I mean, I don't know if it's because they're people that were kind of locked in and had the means to be able to finally do a project they wanted to do or what, but kind of right off the bat, I was hit up by a bunch of people that needed some mixing, or I played guitar on a whole like, it was like a death metal record actually,
Nice.
which was kind of cool to do something different on that front. But I mean, it was not touring and all that was kind of strange, but yeah, I don't know. How was it for you?
It was fine. I mean, it definitely could have been worse, but as you were saying, I mean, a lot of people ended up doing
Yeah.
try to, take time to do their own projects because they finally had the time to do that. And I did some of that myself, and just trying to keep myself busy more than anything else.
Right. Yeah. And like I was saying, I can kind of do whatever I do from anywhere, and I'm usually just here by myself 98% of the time anyway. So it's like on that front, nothing really changed. So
that's good because
yeah,
obviously the performing thing is part of it. But I know I have friends that make most of their money performing, and that was like,
complete. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I tell people it's very important to wear many hats and do many things and get many streams of income and all that. Because if you yank one of those away, it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I had kind of a similar experience. I realized like, hey, I've got to figure out some other ways to make some money because otherwise if something like this happens again, which, fingers crossed that it doesn't, but you got to be ready for that. And the world seems so unstable right now at the moment with everything. It's like anything you can have that seems kind of, anything you have that seems kind of stable is preferable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you, how is it to play really difficult parts and also sing at the same time?
Oh, yeah, that is tricky. There's some things that sound difficult that aren't, and then there's ones that just every night I'm kind of always thinking of it's coming up and I've got to like really focus. And sometimes it's just a matter of like playing it super slow and figuring out like this syllable falls on this beat.
Yeah.
And just kind of once you figure that out, then it becomes muscle memory, but you really have to go through that step first to kind of like, because sometimes what I'm doing is like between my voice and the guitar, usually it's just rhythmically that's the issue.
Yep.
Sometimes it's like polyrhythm type weird, like the way that they both land is kind of, and once you figure that out, then it feels a little more natural. But I'm more aware of that now when I'm recording like an album. I'm always thinking like, am I going to play this live? I need to think about what I play and what I sing and if it's going to be doable. So yeah, that's always a little tricky.
Yeah. And I think it's the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about, as you mentioned. Like, I don't know, if you're just having to sing like on the beat and you're like doing some sort of fast run, that's actually not that hard. Right. As hard as people would think, because one of those just autopilots, right? Either the singing or the guitar or whatever. It's like the rhythmic stuff. I remember in one of the bands I was in, we had this thing where I was singing harmony and I was singing on the downbeat, and the first guitar hit came on the next 16th note. And it's like the idea of that doesn't sound that hard, but like your voice is so physically connected to your body that like as soon as I started singing, so I would always like play the guitar like on the downbeat, and it's like it just took me forever to be like, okay,
And then on that note, there's like there's some harmony parts I have that are like so odd. Like I'm playing like if you're playing the root note or whatever, that's not too bad. But like sometimes the harmony note I'm hitting in relation to what I'm playing on guitar is very weird because either we're doing cluster chords or sometimes we for live, sometimes we got to switch parts so that someone else can take over the lead or whatever. So they're not always intuitive harmony parts. So that takes a little work too.
Yeah, because you're hearing like a power chord that you're playing underneath or something, and then you're singing like the ninth or what, some sort of extension that's like really hard to. That's
and usually that I cue off a lot of like I'll reference my previous note, and use that, and like let's say I need to be up a fourth from the last note I sang. So it's like in my head, I kind of internalize that last note and use that as a reference. Because otherwise it's like you're just taking a stab at trying to hit an 11th or something. It's like,
with the tricky harmonies, it's, you got to like, when I've had to come across that too, it's like, maybe I think like on the guitar, I'll play the note that I'm going to be singing later. So I'll like keep it in my head, and try to see if I can like hit it later. There's all kinds of little tricks you can do when you're performing. Do you still get nervous when you perform?
Not usually. I think it's more of excitement, but I mean, it's definitely, you still get that kind of that butterflies in the stomach sometimes, but I think that's more of excitement.
Yeah.
And even the excitement can be not great for you vocally, I figured out, because like when I get excited, I tend to like
You
everything
tense
gets kind of
up. Yeah.
So like I try to like, I mean, it's hard not if you go out and you're playing like a big show and there's tons of people and everyone's excited and you're excited, and it's like I just gotta like, take it easy, breathe slow, because my voice will get tensed up and then it's hard to sing. And so staying relaxed is important, and I try to do that before. But yeah, I mean, maybe occasionally, maybe when we're filming, there's a little more, I don't know if it's nervous, but it's more aware of what's happening and how you only got one shot. And what was even more nerve-wracking than that was when we did the Morse Fest 2020, which was live streamed, so you really only have one shot.
Yeah, there's no overdubs or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you always have kind of the safety net of like, if you just botched one note or something, you could
punch it in,
fly it in and figure it out. But yeah, when you're live streaming, there's no safety net at all.
Yeah. Live streaming events is weird. I did a few and I was like, it just felt weird.
Yeah.
Especially if there was no one in the audience, then it's like,
oh yeah, and you're supposed to be acting like you're super into it.
Yeah, and there's just cameras and you're like, yeah. But the performing thing is like, I think what I tell people is like, it's not necessarily that you aren't going to be nervous, but it's just that you need to like harness your nerves into your performance, and like if you can do that, then actually it can kind of like give you more focus and help you perform even better in some ways, because you're more aware of what's going on, instead of just kind of like hanging out.
Right. And preparation plays into that, because when you get, Neal always quotes like one of his piano teachers growing up. It's like, I think she says like, when you get on stage, you lose half, meaning like whatever you prepared, like you lose half of that, or at least plan on that. So being over prepared and, with the material, that helps me. I'm always trying to be as prepared as possible beforehand. I mean, even before we get to Nashville and rehearse, like rehearsal is what you do together. Like practice is what you do at home by yourself before you show up.
I mean, ideally when you get to a rehearsal, you should just be able to run through everything right off the bat and then just hone in.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously in your situation with the Neal Morse, it's like, you're not going to have to worry about the other musicians playing their parts properly.
Right. It's more like, none of us want to be like the one guy that doesn't do the part. So like, that's kind of a good motivator.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I'm sitting here practicing. I'm like, well, they're going to be prepared. I need to be as prepared as they're going to be.
Well, I'm going to be playing with Mike Portnoy, so I better make sure I'm playing.
And ironically, he's the one that doesn't have to practice at all.
Yeah, there you go. He seems like he's got quite the memory based on it.
Yeah, he just listens to it on the plane to wherever we're going, and then he's good.
How is it playing with Mike Portnoy? Because I was like the biggest Dream Theater fanboy, and I'm sure based on the guitar that you play, that you were the same. So that was one of the big reasons. Like I was like, whoa, you auditioned for Neal Morse. But
no, it's amazing, and there's still, even after like 10 years now or whatever, I'll still kind of look over my shoulder every now and then. It's completely surreal, but it's totally awesome. And I don't know how else to describe it, except it's just, he's still one of my favorite drummers of all time.
Yeah. And you did I saw some live videos. You did the Shattered Fortress thing with him as well at one point.
Yeah, talk about preparation
with all the guys from Haken too, right? Was it the whole band from Haken?
Everyone but
the drummer. Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands too. So that must have been really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome, and
a lot of work, I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, talking about being like the Dream Theater fanboy, it's like that was the ultimate. Like, I mean, I always tell people, like, Mike emailed me and asked if I would do it, and I immediately just wrote, yeah, like I agreed and sent it before I could even like fathom what I did.
You're like, I have to learn all this.
If I had thought about it, I might have like tried to weasel out or something, because I mean, it's like the ultimate challenge as a guitarist, and then knowing that, with a lot of the prog audience, most people tend to be musicians. So I knew I was going to have the guys in the front row that are like, let's see if he can play it as good as.
Let's see, here comes the Glass Prison arpeggios. Good luck.
Does he sweep them, or does he alternate pick them? It's like,
did you sweep them or alternate pick them? Did it depend on the night?
No, I kind of had my own. I watched how he did it live, and he doesn't alternate pick them live.
No, he does like a
You kind of pull off the first.
Yeah, economy. It's like
like
a
a hybrid
combo.
one.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Yeah, that gig required some preparation and warm up, but man, that it made me better, dude, to learn all that. And I always tell people, they're like, "How do I get better as a guitar player?" I'm like, learn other people's stuff is what I always tell them. Like, find the guys that you look up to, and go learn, even if it's little bits. You know, because I on the cruise one year, Cruise to the Edge, I played a bunch of Liquid Tension Experiment stuff with Mike and Tony Levin, which was amazing, and
awesome.
Diego. So I think that was before Shatter Fortress. But yeah, like learning Paradigm Shift and Acid Rain and all that stuff. It's like, it just makes you better.
Yeah.
And you learn different techniques and stuff that you can use in your own playing. Yep. So it was quite the challenge. And I always have people ask, it'd be a good place to say it, like, how did you know, did he send you the sheet music? And like, that stuff doesn't exist. And if it does, it's
wrong.
Incorrect. If you look at some of the tabs, I did that at first to kind of just see what was out there, and I'm like, that's incorrect. So you just got to learn it by ear, I mean, and figure out.
Or like some sort of, what's nice about the internet and stuff is a combination of things. So if I was to learn a Dream Theater solo, like I'd use my ear, maybe I'd look at a tab, but I wouldn't take it seriously. And then I'd watch a video too of him playing it, so you can get an idea of the fingerings.
I did so much of the going on YouTube and finding videos where they were showing him. That's the other thing. You might find a video and then they're not showing him.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Like, why aren't you? He's playing the solo. Why is the video not on the solo?
So yeah, I mean, the age of YouTube, man. If I'd had that when I was learning guitar.
Yeah, it's so nice. And the thing on YouTube, you can slow it down too. So even if you get a good video of someone playing it, it's like, just slow it down, look at it out. Because I have a couple tab books. Which ones? I have Scenes from Memory and 6 Degrees, and they're both like, there's the official tab books, and they're just bad.
Really? Wow. I always wondered who puts that together.
I don't know. I think they were like edited by John Petrucci, meaning he probably just like looked over them really quickly. And like some of it's okay, but there's definitely parts where I'm like, that is not like even close to how he's fingering that part. So I always tell people, like, take even like actual tab books, take them with like a real grain of salt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was kind of the process too, with learning some of the stuff for the Neal Morse audition too, was because 10 years ago it didn't have any of that kind of, less of that kind of stuff anyway. So my ear wasn't very good back then, so I was like trying to figure it all out by ear. It was really tough.
Learning all that stuff made my ear better. Like I can pick stuff out faster now because I spent all that time, and I like would purposely not slow stuff down.
Yeah.
I mean, even I'd like load it into my like DAW, and I'd like quickly press the space bar to try to get a couple notes. Like I was trying to like make my ear better. Not that like slowing down is cheating or anything, but you know, I was just trying to figure out. I'm always trying to get better if I can. That was a cool way to do that.
I don't know. I have no problem slowing it down if it's something like extremely fast, because the thing is, like, typically with that kind of stuff, there's a pattern usually in it. So like if you can figure out the kind of overall pattern, typically it will kind of sequence its way down, you know, for the most part. But
yeah.
Anyway, cool. Well, I think that's pretty much all I got. Thanks for chatting with me. It was super fun.
Good to meet you finally.
Yeah. I don't think we actually met in person in Nashville. I don't think I met hardly anyone, but
later. And then I actually they asked me to play for a couple of the auditions, so I met a couple of drummers. But
I had breakfast with Bill Hubauer, who's also in, because we were at the same hotel. So there was a couple of us that kind of just sat and had breakfast for a while. He's a cool guy too.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. And if anyone out there, you can go check out all of Eric's stuff. It's really great. So,
thanks, man.
All right.